Hey, welcome everyone to the Passionately Wrong podcast with James and myself, Randy. And today we're going to talk about diets. Why? Because we think that this is probably the topic that most people in the world have gotten passionately wrong about at some point in their life, whether they've been dedicated to a diet and haven't been able to stick with it, or they've changed their lifestyle and they're in a new diet now in this time of their life or something like that. I know I've changed my diet significantly since when I was younger, and I've had a weird diet in the military for various reasons. But we'll start with James. James, what's your experience with diet from high school to now?
All right, Randy, thank you. And I would start by saying that when we refer to diet, we don't just mean regimen of what you eat, although, of course, that's what diet actually means. I'm going to refer to it more broadly as the whole concept of feeding yourself. So, what you eat and when you eat, because I've come to understand over the course of a long period that it's not just the composition, it's also the manner in which you eat that has an impact on how your food is going to impact your life. So I was heavy in high school. When I got to Holland, I was 13 and I was already chubby, and I got chubbier over the course of my 5 years in Holland until I graduated and went off to college. And I struggled with my weight pretty much until my 30s then. So Holland didn't help me at all with French
Mm.
fries and many things that were tasty, but maybe in hindsight, not great. And I also didn't have any kind of exercise habit at that time. So I did experiment more than a few times with, I'm not going to call them fad diets, an attempt to lose weight by changing what I was eating. And none of them stuck with me at all, really, until I also introduced an exercise habit. So I have been, though, as a result of being heavy, interested in looking at what was the latest advice about nutrition and what people should eat, and this diet and that diet. And I got to say, you're right when you said in the intro, this is an area that most people have been passionately wrong about at some point. And I would also say it's an area where, in my personal view, 90% of the information that you will see out there is itself passionately wrong. So it's not just that you, Randy, or me, James, has been wrong about something once or twice. Almost everything that you will read and see, and this is so depressing for such an important topic, almost everything is wrong, misleading, taken out of context, unhelpful. It's a dreadful situation to be in for something so important to health and happiness. So that's my intro to say I tried a lot of things. Most of them never worked. I could tell you what I do now, but did you have any of those experiences? I remember you being more active in school than I was. You ran track, if I'm not wrong. You swam. You probably were not, I used the word chubby. I was overweight.
I don't think I was chubby, but I only started getting on the teams because my friends were on it. Tom and Bill and all those guys we may talk to later. But I was on the track team and the cross country team and the swim team for the last 2 or 3 years of high school. But I was like the worst of each team. I was like at the bottom of like there. I think you had to have 7 runners, and we only had 7 varsity runners, and I was the seventh. Or I think I told you a story where I was the eighth, and the seventh guy mysteriously broke his leg, so I could go to the finals, and I had nothing to do with it. But then I get to college, and I'm not in any team. I don't like any team sports because I've been doing the kind of individual sports, for lack of a better word, for my whole life. And so I ran every night, and then in college just for myself. And I got faster and faster. And I decided in like college I was going to join the army. And of course, the army has mandatory physical training every day for at least the first 10 years of my life. And then I was getting ready for Ranger School and the Green Beret course and all these other courses. So, but as far as diet's concerned, I don't understand how all those Dutch people stay. Yeah, they were all pretty slim. I guess they were biking everywhere when we weren't. But they're eating Poffertjes with sugar on them and pancake houses and cheese and fries too, and Wiener Schnitzel and stuff like that. And they seem to do fine. I don't know. Maybe it was portions. I don't know what's going on over there, but at least seems like the Americans had a harder time. But when I was in the military, when I was in college, I ate whatever, pizza and all you could eat at the cafeteria and whatever. And then when I joined the army, That's not great food usually. They started having pretty good salad bars after I'd been in for 10 years at the cafeterias. And then it's an all you can eat buffet for breakfast every morning. Omelets, 4 egg omelets and hash browns and gravy on your muffin or whatever biscuit. And then they have all kinds of breakfast cakes and stuff like that. And I think I probably 5,000 calories every morning. I guarantee it. And when I was in the Rangers, we had an awesome cafeteria where on the weekends it was brunch. So you could get all this breakfast and they'd throw a steak on top of it and potatoes. So I can say for most of my military career, I ate not very well and I ate whatever was put in front of me. I stayed pretty trim for the first 10 or 15 years till I hurt my leg in a parachute jump. But I didn't really go to the fad diets. The problem with the military is you have a height weight relationship that you have to meet. And it doesn't really go good for the people who are super muscular fit. Like, I mean, by the time I was 6 or 7 years in, I was getting taped because if you don't make the height weight thing, then you get taped to see what your percentage of body fat. And it's not the most accurate way to do it, but they do you around your waist and around your neck, and they have a formula. And so you have some guys with like huge necks for whatever reason. They weren't really in shape. They're overweight, but they had these huge necks. And so they make tape every time. And then you have someone who's slimmer with me that had a lot of muscle, but my neck was thin. And so you'd see guys in the gym who are just really muscular, but they'd be working their neck like 5 times a day. They're like, "Ugh, ugh, ugh," so they could just build their neck up tighter to get these things. It was funny. But yeah, it wasn't until later in my life that I actually tried some diets out like at the end of my career when I got out.
All
But
right.
what
So let us compare notes on some of the stuff we've tried. As you're talking, I realized I probably could list a few beliefs I've held at different times. But what I want to highlight from what you just said is three words: quality, quantity, and activity. So, what's the quality of the stuff you eat when you're young and for actually a large part of one's life? Decades and decades, I'd say you can actually abuse your body and get away with it without seeing the consequences of it too specifically. So, yeah, sure, maybe you'll lose or gain some weight and you necessarily won't feel as good as you would. But the body is a remarkable machine and it can handle a lot of different fuel that you put into it. And if you just go travel around the world, as many of our listeners have and do, you'll see people eating pretty varied diets, right? And they do just fine on them. And that's partly just because the body is an amazing machine. So you can not pay a lot of attention to the quality of food you're ingesting for a long time. Quantity will have an impact, and you can eat cheese and French fries, but if you don't eat a lot of them, you won't have the same impact as somebody who eats 5,000 calories a day for breakfast every day. But the reason that you didn't get fat and your fellow soldiers didn't get fat is because you were doing a ton of physical activity. And that might also be the explanation for why people in Holland aren't more overweight than people in the US who are not bicycling everywhere. So those three words I want to keep in mind because I think that's going to be part of the puzzle. How much do you eat? What do you eat? And how active are you?
Yeah, and so I guess part of that goes into this kind of intermittent fasting, but I was the military forces intermittent fasting at sometimes. I mean, there's schools where I was only allowed 1 meal a day, and the
Mm,
purpose was to starve me and also sleep deprivation to stress me out because they actually can't hurt me and shoot me to stress me out or shoot at me. And so the purpose was, hey, if you're sleep deprived and you're hungry and you're leading a bunch of other sleep deprived and hungry people, then the stress level for everyone goes up. And can you lead in that scenario? Can you be, and even in combat, you'll have tired people that are hungry as well, but they'll be being shot at. So you just got to add that extra level. But at least you've dealt with the hungry, tired people that are irritated.
all right.
And then that's almost equitable to the tired, hungry people that are stressed out for being shot, apparently. But I've been to so many schools that said, hey, we're going to starve you. You're going to get 1 meal a day, maybe sometimes no meals a day. Or we'll give you all 7 meals for the week today. And then you're like, for the next 2 days, you're like, yum. And then for 3 days, you're like, crap, I'm so hungry. So that in a way that was intermittent fasting, but that wasn't really a buzzword back then.
I'll just jump right to intermittent fasting as being what I think of in my 50s now as a very useful tool to use to manage consumption of food. and it's not hard and it seems to have health benefits. And if I had to pick one thing that I would have said is it's a combination of two things. Most likely to result in a good outcome for you, it is limit the amount of hours you eat food during the day. And I'll say specifically what I think I understand the recommendation to be, and otherwise be active. So the combination of those two things doesn't matter actually what you eat. If you like fat, fine. If you like protein, fine. If you like carbohydrates, fine. I think people get themselves extremely sidetracked with worrying about what am I supposed to be eating and what's the ideal mix of this, that, and the other thing. I think that is misguided, that advice. I'm interested to hear what you think about it. So limit your eating to, let's just say for the sake of argument, 7 or 8 hours a day. So you have for most people, that ends up being 2 meals. And then don't eat for the other 16 hours a day. That period, I understand, based on the research, can be as short as or as long as, depending on how you look at it, 12 and 12. Just don't eat for a 12-hour period and you will get most of the benefits of intermittent fasting. And the benefits come from not just reducing the total amount of calories you consume, but also it triggers helpful cellular processes inside your body of getting rid of damaged cells and old cells. And it helps keep you feeling good and looking good. That's the theory. That's
I
not what the military did and does. But do you practice any kind of intermittent fasting now?
I do it, but it's so I stopped snacking a long time.
Mm.
Oh, so when I eat dinner around 7, I don't eat anything after that, and then I wake up, go to the gym, and by the time I'm back to the gym, it's 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So I've already
There
done
you go. There's
15
your 14 hours. Yeah, 15
Yeah.
hours. Yeah.
So I think whether it's the not snacking or the intermittent fasting benefits I'm getting, I do feel like I'm getting benefits from either or both. Mm.
Just to mention
But
it though, Randy, they do say that actually not giving calories to your body during that period is what creates some of the benefits. So it's not just the small amount of calories you're not getting, it's actually the cellular process is different. So when I do it, I don't even put milk in my coffee in the morning. If I have a coffee first thing, it's really not having any calories that helps trigger some of that benefits. So you not snacking during that period, I think is appropriate.
and I don't drink coffee, and I just drink water at the gym. So that's all I'm having in those 15 hours is water, pretty much.
No coffee.
No,
Of all the things you've told me, that is probably the most surprising.
I did take up drinking coffee for a year because my then girlfriend, now wife, drinks it, and it was something we could do together. But I actually don't like the taste, so I'd be like, "Ugh." Finally, after I realized that all the calories and stuff that I'm actually drinking with, because I don't like just plain coffee. If I gotta drink coffee, it's gonna have stuff in it. And I was like, you know what? This is really not worth it. And it's killing me. You're killing me, sweetheart. So I'm not going to socialize with you drinking coffee anymore.
Well, besides, so tea, anything else with caffeine in it, or really just water?
I pretty much just drink water all day. And then at night, she'll make me some healthy tea or something like that before, like after dinner.
All right. That would be, I do know people who don't drink coffee, and I think they're weird, but okay. Most of them drink some other caffeinated beverage. Good to you.
I'm
I think
probably
I'm
your
excited.
most, I think, from passionately wrong perspective, most people think I'm a oddball kind of soldier because I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink coffee. I don't smoke. I don't use tobacco of any form. Like a lot of military guys will dip. And so when I meet fellow soldiers, even they're like, huh, what? And then at the end, they're like, what? And then especially civilians are always confused about the whole thing. They don't have any tattoos either. So they're passionately wrong soldier. There you go.
Yeah. So, in terms of healthy lifestyle, I know this extends beyond the diet topic that we're talking about today, which we'll come back to. But it is interesting, right? It's usually a combination of other factors like alcohol and smoking and activity. But I want to give a counterpoint to your no snacking. And that is to say that for a while I was focused when I first lost weight. I was in my early 30s and I did it in a short period because I hate dieting and I was not good at it. But at one point I said, all right, I'm going to lose some weight. And I lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks and 50 pounds over the course of a couple of months. And I did it by just extreme calorie reduction, right? I would eat a salad with a few hundred calories in it, and I would have a grapefruit in the afternoon. I'm a big fan, completely superstitiously, of either a grapefruit or a green apple, because I had read somewhere they have some properties that help you burn fat. But it was, of course, obviously just reducing my calories down to 800 calories a day and then doing some exercise on the side. And that's how I lost all my weight. And I kept it off, though, by trying to follow a low glycemic diet. So not having a lot of spikes in my blood sugar, which for me meant choosing some healthier foods. So I would eat nuts for a snack or something that didn't create a strong response. But I never went more for probably 15 years than 3 hours without eating. I ate and I snacked and I ate and I snacked all day long. And so I was the exact opposite of intermittent fasting back then. I ate,
You're
from the
intermittent
moment I got,
fasting.
I was mid fasting, exactly. From the moment I got up to the moment I went to bed. And I think my total calories weren't that much because most of those meals were small. But really, literally, I was eating at least every 3 hours. And I got so used to it. I loved it. I'm not the poster child for what I think is a good approach to diet because I tend to veer to extremes. And I would say it suits me now, but I wouldn't say everyone has to do intermittent fasting. I had success with the frequent snacking method or grazing, whatever they call it. I had success with extreme calorie restriction to lose weight in a short period of time. And I have had success. The one that I like now that fits my lifestyle best seems to be I eat whatever I want in a restricted period of time and I stay active. Yeah.
So I've had probably in the military, I've had 3 really big weight losses, and they weren't intentional. They were results of what I was doing. One was when I was in Ranger school. I think I lost 20 or 30 pounds. And that's where you get at one meal a day. It's 2.5, it was 2.5 months long. It's 10 weeks long, but I did it. And every other week or so, you'd have to go 5 days with one meal a day or something like that. That's probably a good average. There's some of them are a little longer, some are a little shorter, but every other week you go one meal a day for 5 days or something like that. And then, and then I actually lost probably 20 pounds in the POW school, where the first week you get your classes and you get really good food. The second week you're in survival school and you eat what you can find. And hunting and if you're hunting with your hands and fishing with your whatever you got in your pocket for a week in North Carolina in October, there's not much there. And I wasn't very good at it apparently either. And then the second week you're treated like a prisoner of war. And so you're fed whatever they feed you in the prison, which is one meal every other day or something like that. So I lost 20 or 30 pounds there. And then I went to the Colombian Ranger School where on top of them, they just eat less food. They're smaller than me. And it was rice every day. It was rice. Every meal and every day was rice. And it was 10 weeks long. And after about the fourth or fifth week, I couldn't eat rice anymore. I was like, I don't know. They put rice in front of me. I was like, and my buddy, Lancero buddy, he was like, hey, you gonna eat that? I was like, no. And he was getting fat. And I was like, I was losing I literally lost in that school. And I got sick at the end of it too. I got a kind of a digestive problem, schistosomiasis kind of thing. And I went from 190 when I got there to 122.
Oh,
And when I got back, I was just a tall, skinny guy. And I walked into my team room and no one recognized me. And I sat down at my desk and and everyone was talking behind my back and they're like, can we help you? And I'm like, no, I'm good. And they're like, are you in the wrong room? I was like, nope, I'm in the exact place where I'm supposed to be. And finally someone was like, hey, is that Randy? That was
wow.
how bad.
That is a crazy amount of undesired weight loss, huh?
Yeah. And so then after that, there wasn't too much stuff. Sometime in Afghanistan, like in the very first years of Afghanistan, if you're in a outpost in the middle of nowhere, sometimes you didn't get resupplied as fast as you wanted to. So you had to cut down on the food and you had to buy local, and that wasn't the greatest. But most of the time in Afghanistan, especially after the first 2 or 3 years, you ate like a king. It was like lobster and shrimp and steak and frozen pizzas and ice cream sandwiches and Red Bull. And most people came out of there, if they weren't working out, they were coming out of there pretty fat.
So short of actual dysentery and other medical problems, I think your experience indicates, at least on 3 occasions and mine on 1 occasion, that extreme calorie reduction will result in weight loss. It's not pleasant. It's not necessarily fun. It might result in your loss of muscle mass in addition to fat, things like that. You look like you want to add some.
Every time it was always combined. And for me, it was combined with calorie reduction and a lot of physical work. And
Yes.
every single episode, there's a lot of stuff going on simultaneously.
My one time was active as well. And that raises a good point, which is that simply reducing the amount of calories you take in without doing something else, even if it's not as extreme as what you were just describing, doesn't work nearly as well as you would think, because your body is, besides being able to run on almost anything, extremely good at compensating for changes in energy demands. So your weight doesn't fluctuate nearly as much as the calorie consumption and energy expenditure would suggest. If you just do the math in, math out, it does not work that way at all. So it's almost like you have to trick your body into adjusting to a new weight, which is depressing because that's why people struggle so much with shifting their weight with a diet. You need to do multiple things in order to get to a point where that works. Let's talk about one. Let me ask you the first this. Do you today worry about the composition of what you eat? Do you say, I'm going to cut out carbs, or I'm going to make sure I don't have trans fats or cholesterol, or are there
So
things that you will or won't eat as a result of your learnings?
so I've had a cholesterol problem since I was 28 or 29, and all the doctors tried to put me on statins and a bunch of different drugs. They all have side effects that aren't fun, but I've been taking something pretty much for from 30 on to when I got out and when I was 50, and I hated it. And I said, come on, there's got to be something I can do. And so I tried to figure it out. I cut out all the fried food and my fast food, fried food, because most of the time I was in the army, I ate whatever I wanted whenever I was hungry, and it was never a big deal. But I'd end up really for most of my career until I got to the higher levels with desk jobs. I was in the gym or running or something 3 or 4 hours a day. And so it didn't matter. But obviously the type of food I thought the type of food was going to affect my cholesterol. So I cut out fast food. I cut out fried food. That didn't work. Cut out beef, cut out pork, just going to eat chicken and fish. Nothing really changed. The way I knew is nothing changes, I do it for a couple months and then I stop taking my pills. And then I go tell the doctors, like, I need a blood test. You just had one like 4 months ago. I was like, give me another one. And he's like, holy crap, your cholesterol's like way up there. Are you taking your pills? I stopped I wanted to see if, no. So I started taking them again. And then at the very end, I just did fish and vegetables and carbs, and it still didn't work. And I was like, gosh, dang it. I actually tried to go vegan, like maybe when I was 45 or something, without a plan, without reading about veganism. And then I was like, I have nothing to eat. Well, how does anyone do this? And so that lasted like less than a day because I was like, I don't know, this sounds like work. And so the last time I lost a large amount of weight, I went on the Camino de Santiago, which we talked about in a previous episode, and I was 222 pounds, which wasn't my heaviest, but it was probably my heaviest with more fat than muscle. So at this point, I was 50 years old. I was not doing 4 hours in the gym. I was maybe doing an hour a day. And so I definitely was not in my prime shape. And I'd had hurt knees, hurt back. So I wasn't comfortable doing a lot of exercise. And I decided to walk 500 miles across northern Spain in my last year in the military. And so you're walking like 20 miles a day. And I met my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and she was vegan. And so like the third or fourth day, we were talking and she's talking about veganism. And I was like, I couldn't figure out what to eat. It seemed like it would be easy, but when I realized that I can't eat eggs. How do I get my protein? Can't eat my whatever. And so we had a discussion. She suggested a book, which is Michael Greger's How Not to Die. Good title. And I read it. I listened to it on tape like in one day because you basically walk 6 hours, and it was probably 2 days. Maybe I listened to the whole thing. And there's a big section on cholesterol. And I was like, I guess I'll try it. And also, hey, there's this cute girl who's vegan and she'll maybe walk me through it if she wants to, she has the time. So I started eating what she ate and for the rest of the trip. And I went down to 190. So I lost 32 pounds over that month. And I stopped taking my pills because I was doing another trial pill thing. And I went to my doctor. I kept up with it a month after I did it. So I had no pills for a month and a half. And I was a vegan for 2 months. And I was at 185 when I walked into the doctor's office. So by then I'd lost what is that, 35 pounds, 36 pounds. And I didn't have to get taped. I just got a physical training test. And for the first time in a long time, I weighed 185, so 189. I'm under 189 pounds, so I didn't have to get taped. And I was like, wow, I'm getting out of the army without getting taped. That's awesome. And I went to the doctor, got my cholesterol test, and my final one for the army. And he's, hey, your cholesterol is great. Let's just keep you on the pills. And they had me on three times the minimum because my cholesterol was so bad originally. And I said, I haven't taken my pills in 2 months. He's, what are you talking about? You need to take your pills. And I was like, but you just said my cholesterol is great. And he's like, we need to get that test again. That's weird. It's fluke. Let's figure it out. And I was like, I went vegan. He's like, I don't care. And I was like, this doesn't happen. And I was like, I'll tell you what, I'm getting out in a month. I'm not taking the pills. I don't like the pills. I don't like the side effects of the pills. And you just said my cholesterol is great. I'm just going to stick with this diet. And I have ever since then. I know I didn't, I've been a vegan ever since for 6 years now, 7 years, whatever. And I really believe that. There's two ways that this can go down, right? It's the loss of weight. That was a big factor in my cholesterol. But I weighed 190, 185 in the army and I still had a high cholesterol. So maybe that could obviously have helped it a little bit. But I really think the veganism, here's another weird thing about veganism. My whole life, I've been allergic to cats, like deathly allergic. Like I walk into a house, I didn't even know if they have a cat, and I start having trouble breathing. My throat gets all kind of scratchy. My eyes start watering, get all puffy. My nose starts running, and I can spend about 10 minutes in a place with a cat before I got to go. I got to go. And my girlfriend at the time loved cats, had multiple cats. I knew this was going to be an issue. And I went to the doctor and said, hey, what's this thing I can stop being allergic to cats? I was like, yeah, you got to get this thing for 2 years. I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a lot of trouble. I'll suck it up. And so I came to Romania and I went to her parents' house and they had two cats and I took all the drugs so I wouldn't feel the symptoms. And I'm sitting in the house talking to her dad, falling asleep because they make you go to sleep. So the first time I meet her parents, they're like, why are you with this guy? He's falling asleep. He's not even interested in us. That was really bad. She's like, I'm on the drugs. But the next time I was like, I'm not taking the drugs. So the second time I meet him, I'm not on the drugs. I've been a vegan for a year, 6 months, and I'm not allergic to cats anymore. I'm not allergic to cats anymore. And the only thing I did is go vegan. It's really weird. It sounds like witchcraft or something. But so anyway, my cholesterol's down. I'm not allergic to cats and I'm still a vegan. And I got a passionately wrong thing about veganism, but I've talked a lot. So I'll let you go.
We do want to make sure we highlight the passionately wrong. And I will do so by saying that your comment about witchery, Randy, so much of what we understand about nutrition is really witchery, what we think we understand, because people take isolated studies that highlight a single result and then they extrapolate too much, too far, and take things out of context. There are complicated systems. We are affected by what we eat, of course, and what we do, but it's not so simple as you cut this food out of your diet or you add this food into your diet and then X thing is going to happen. There's a ton of research about the impact of sugar, salt, fat, cholesterol, and other things that one can consume in their diet. And what I want to say is, and what's interesting and to me a little bit surprising about your story, I want to follow up on this, is I understood that in fact, one of the huge myths that affects US healthcare is that dietary cholesterol does not affect for most people, the level of cholesterol in your blood. You can eat eggs all you want and it won't impact your cholesterol level because that's something your body itself produces. If you eat too many eggs, you'll excrete the excess cholesterol. Whereas your body says, I'm going to create a certain amount of cholesterol because, by the way, it's necessary for all sorts of healthy functioning of your body. And the correlation between high cholesterol and heart disease is one thing, but there's a lot of false and wrong correlations and conclusions that were made. But just like you can't affect the amount of cholesterol in your blood by virtue of changing your diet and stopping eating eggs, why should you switching to a vegan diet actually have an impact on your cholesterol? Was it really that, or was it something else you did? Do you know of any broader? By the way, I had seen and read Gregor's book, How Not to Die. And I think I remember him saying basically just eat whole foods, have a mostly plant based diet, which I didn't understand to be veganism at the time I was reading it. But what you're saying now fits and makes sense. And I also didn't pick up on the impact of such a diet on cholesterol. So Is that a known potential benefit of a vegan diet? Do you know? Or was your response seems like it surprised at least your military
According,
colleagues?
I mean, the reason I really embraced it right then is because I really wanted to get out of the army off the drugs. I,
Yes.
I, and that had been my goal for the last 10 years of my career. That's why I was doing all this experimentation. And I was like, and the doctors, it's just genetics. And I was like, "Ah, God, come on. Is there any way you might be able to affect it with diet, but we can't really tell you what, but maybe stay away from fat foods and fried foods and that, but other than that, but his book has a section on cholesterol and how it can affect and with some studies and some blind studies and things like that. And so I was like, what do I have to lose? And not to mention the fact that I have someone here that can mentor me through it because going veganism you have to be and have intention because you have to understand how things get mixed together differently and what you can use. My mom, I went home to visit my parents a couple of years ago, and my mom doesn't know anything about veganism except there's no meat and eggs and milk and stuff, right? So I get up one day, she's like, "I made you some pancakes. They're vegan pancakes." I was like, "Really? That's awesome, mom. Thanks." I was like, and so I got there, I took a bite, and the box is sitting there. I'm like, "Hey, mom, what mix did you use?" She's like, "Oh, I used this one. Just added water, so there's no milk or eggs or." I was like, "Mom, the milk and eggs is in the powder. It's in the pancake powder." She's like, "It is. All I knew was add water." I was like, "I get it. So you had powder and water. So therefore it's vegan. Is that the thinking process?" She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, I get it. Thanks for making the pancakes, Mom." But there's a lot more thought that goes into it. And a lot of people will look at me and say, "Where are you getting your protein? If you're not eating meat, where are you getting your protein?" And once you track everything and realize where protein comes from, which just about everything comes from everything. Broccoli's got spinach, beans is where most people get it when they're vegan, tofu and everything else. But you have to figure that out because before that you had 4 boiled eggs in the morning. And that was your protein for the first half of the day. And even if you didn't want to eat meat, you ate eggs in the morning and you were good to go. Or protein shakes, but all the protein shakes aren't all vegan either, which would got to compute all this stuff. So there's a learning curve. And if anyone who's trying to go vegan, I wouldn't recommend going cold turkey like I did, cold soyurkey. But unless you have some kind of mentor, otherwise, if you're going to do it alone, read some books. There's some good books out there like starter vegan books and stuff like that, and go into it slowly because otherwise you just get frustrated and you quit like I did the first time. Cause I was just like, no eggs, no milk, no yogurt. What am I going to eat for breakfast? There's nothing left.
Good news
So
is rice is still okay, right?
rice is okay. But I didn't eat rice for 10 years after that school. I couldn't eat it. I just started eating it lately in the last 5 years.
All right. So really bring us home. Tell us the passionately wrong points that you wanted to highlight that you've learned.
I kind of slipped them in there. Basically, people are like, you can't get enough protein if you're on a vegan diet, which is totally
Gotcha.
incorrect. Yeah. There's vegan protein powders made out of peas and a bunch of other stuff. There's tofu, there's soy, and there's a lot. Michael Greger's got a really great podcast and a really good webpage, and it's all free information that he's acquired. He says that all his books go to his nonprofit that promotes healthy eating. And if you go there and search on his YouTube channel /slash podcast, you'll find topics on everything about every myth, every passionately wrong thing you ever thought about being a vegan is on there with the studies and the links to the studies. It's very clear. We'll put the links in the bottom of this for everybody if they're interested. But, and if you just read How Not to Die, which is basically about the 10 most lethal diseases in the United States, starting with heart disease, diabetes, and things like that, and how having a plant-based diet will help you, if not, in some cases, they've got proof that it reverses heart disease too, but basically helps you not get there so that that's the killer. I guess one of the last thing that I'll say about veganism is veganism and plant-based are different. Plant-based is what
Yes.
you're putting in your body, and veganism is, hey, I'm not going to wear leather. I'm opposed to any animal cruelty at all, or in making anything I wear or anything like that. And I'm lean more toward plant-based, but the longer I've been plant-based, the more I lean towards, why are we doing that? Do I need to get that? And do I need to support that industry and things like that too? But I didn't start that way, and I'm not 100%, I guess, vegan for that. I'm not throwing red paint on people with fur coats and stuff like that. But
So let's finish on hopefully good news. And that is you've been out of the military for a couple of years now. You haven't been taking your medication. How's the cholesterol looking, your blood work?
yeah, so I've been out for 6 years. My cholesterol is not as primo as it was when I got out, but I've also gained 15 pounds. So I would say that's why I mentioned that I'm sure weight loss had part to do with the cholesterol. And then I really think the vegan diet brought it home. So it's hard to see which one was the biggest effect. But I don't have anything close to the cholesterol I had before I went to the Camino. Maybe it was the Camino. Maybe it was the spiritual.
Maybe
Uh,
enlightenment.
we're thinking about doing the Camino for a week or two this year too. So maybe I'll get back to that. The woo. I guess the last thing is that I got a book here, The In Defense of Food by Michael Pollan, and it's a really good book as well. And he's not saying that you need to be plant-based diet only and stuff, but the whole theme of his book was eat food, not too much, mostly plants.
Okay. I think we've given some people ideas about there's lots of different ways to do things wrong. And there's not obviously a clear way to do things, although we've given you some suggestions of things that worked for us and are still working for us. It might be worth a follow up at some point to get into veganism as such. And there's probably myths more than the ones that you already quickly mentioned and addressed. We'll see if there's interest in that, Randy. For now, I'd say thanks for listening, everyone. You're listening to the Passionately Wrong podcast. We're glad you're here and we hope you had fun today.
Thanks, guys. We'd love to hear what you think, so please comment on the show with your thoughts. We read all of your comments.
Thanks for joining us and thanks for subscribing. See you next time.